I'm Chris, a den leader with Pack 47 in Manchester, Connecticut. As part of the bear requirements, Scouts have to do a couple of woodworking projects for the Baloo the Builder belt loop. One of those, listed right in the bear book, is a Tic Tac Toe board, and that's the project we're going to be doing today. I'm going to step you through the basics of putting it together with a few modifications that I've made to enhance it and to give the Scouts an opportunity to practice with a few more hand tools. So let's begin. We're going to start with a simple piece of wood. This is just cut from any scrap pile of wood to a 4.5 inch square, 4.5 inches on each side. I just find that that's a comfortable size for a game board. It's not too big, not too small. To start, we're going to take a ruler and a pencil, and we want to make some measurements in order to establish our grid for the tic-tac-toe game. You can do this by measuring in 1.5 inches from each corner. 1.5 inches in from each corner, and making a little mark. You might find it easier with the Scouts to identify the 1.5 inch mark on the ruler and then use that on each of the corners in each direction to make your marks, rather than laying the ruler down once and figuring 1.5 plus and minus. And once you've made all of your marks, there should be 8 of them, all the way around, 1.5 inches in from each corner on each side. Now you just need to take your ruler again and connect the opposite marks. We're done with the ruler. The next part we can do freehand. This doesn't require much precision. We just want to make a little bit of a scribble, a little mark, roughly in the middle of each square on our game board. These are going to be where we're drilling the holes for the pegs later on. Now that we've measured and marked everything, we can put our pencil aside and get to the actual woodworking. Before we do, we need to put on our safety glasses. Even when working with hand tools, safety glasses are important. It protects your eyes from dust and any slips or anything, whether it's a chip of wood or a tool itself, from hitting your eye. Now we could just make these lines dark with marker or paint, but I like to give the board a little bit of relief, so I like to cut the lines. You can use any kind of handsaw, from a larger handsaw to a smaller handsaw. You can even use a hacksaw or coping saw, whatever you have on hand. I happen to like using a utility saw. This is a folding model with a replaceable blade, very commonly available at hardware stores, but it's a good size and easy to hold, and the teeth make it fairly easy to cut. So find one of the marks, one of your lines, and initially just make some light marks in the corner to establish a notch for the saw to ride in. Once you've got the notch established, you can go ahead and start slowly cutting across, keeping in that corner. And as you get a little bit deeper, you're going to lower the saw closer and closer to the wood to make that notch extend further across. Now keep in mind, we're not trying to cut all the way through. We're just making lines in the wood so that we can give it a little bit more dimension and optionally paint them later on. So once it's going pretty well, you can really just get into a groove, so to speak. Once you've got that all the way across the wood, just keep cutting evenly across until you get to a reasonable depth. I would say about an 1/8 inch, no more than a 1/4 inch. You don't want to be cutting forever. Do this to all 4 of the cuts, 2 horizontally, 2 vertically. I'm going to jump ahead to a partially completed one and finish this line off. You can sort of check on the sides to see if they all look like they're pretty close to even. There. Now we made the marks earlier where we're going to put the holes for the pegs. Now if you're doing this in a den setting, Cub Scouts aren't supposed to use power tools in the den. But if you're doing this at home with your own child, you can choose whether or not you want to use a hand tool or a power drill. I'm going to use a power drill. And using an extra piece of wood as a backer, we're simply going to drill through each of those remaining holes. Now it's all cut and drilled, but it's looking a little bit rough. So the next step is to sand it smooth. Now you can use sanding blocks, large or small, or these sanding sponges, whatever you happen to have on hand. Even loose sandpaper will be fine. I would recommend using an 80 grit or something around that range to start, and then progressing up to finer and finer grits as you go. I have a good sanding block here that I can smooth the top down, but if you have time, it gives it a nice feel if you round over all of the edges as well, and either just take off the sharp edge or really smooth it down to actually be a rounded over. And don't forget the corners as well. A couple of knocks on there will take off that harsh edge and give it a little nicer feel in the hand. Take some time to give it a good, thorough sanding, because the next step is going to be painting. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole painting process because really, most people know how to paint, and I want you to be creative. I happen to have one that I've already painted. Because I used the saw with the wider blade, it gave me a wide enough line that I could actually get some paint down in there, and then just carefully paint a different color over the top. You notice this one already has pegs in it. The pegs are simply golf tees. Purchase or find in your own collection any golf tees. You just want to get 10 tees, 5 of one color, 5 of another. If you have them all the same color, paint them. And you don't have to paint the ends, just paint the tops. And once everything is dry, you are ready to play a game of Tic Tac Toe.